All right, it's 1:03. Hopefully everybody has had time to get into the room. We're going to go ahead and get started. Welcome everybody to the policy work group for fiscal year 2025-2026. Clean Truck Bus Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP. My name is April and I'll be helping facilitate the meeting today. Simultaneous interpretation is being provided, and everyone has the choice to listen to the presentation in either English, Spanish, or Punjabi. We are also providing ASL interpretation. For monolingual participants, you should select English to ensure any comments given in another language are interpreted for you. To use the Zoom interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of your Zoom screen where the meeting controls are located. Then click the interpretation icon and select the desired language. If you're using the Zoom mobile app on your phone or tablet, click the ellipses that says More, then Interpretation, and then choose the desired language. To hear only the interpreted language, click Mute Original Audio. Please note, American Sign Language is also available today, and we offer captions for this meeting as well. To enable or disable captions, click the More button and choose Captions.
Muy buenas tardes. Como se acaba de indicar, se está ofreciendo, interpretación simultánea al español para esta reunión del Grupo de Trabajo de Políticas, donde se abordará el proyecto de incentivos en vales para la adquisición de autobuses y camiones de cero emisiones e híbridos correspondiente al año fiscal 2025-2026. Para hacer uso del servicio, justo después de este aviso, en su barra de controles aparecerá un icono de interpretación. Parece un globo terráqueo como ven en pantalla. Simplemente le da clic y selecciona español como su idioma. Si por algún motivo no ve el icono, suele suceder en dispositivos móviles, simplemente presiona los puntos suspensivos, los tres puntitos, luego interpretación de idiomas y de ahí seleccionar español. Gracias and thank you.
ਕਾਲ ਸਭ ਨੂੰ ਨਮਸਤੇ ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਤੇ ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੇ ਅੱਜ ਦੀ ਮੀਟਿੰਗ ਹੈਗੀ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਨਾਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਅਨੁਵਾਦ ਕਰਕੇ ਦਿੱਤਾ ਜਾਏਗਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਸੁਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ ਜਾਂ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚਾਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸੁਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ ਇਹਦੇ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਤੁਹਾਨੂੰ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਤੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਇੱਕ ਆਈਕਨ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਇੱਕ ਨਿਸ਼ਾਨ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਇਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਥੱਲੇ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੁਣਨਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਹਦੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਨੂੰ ਚੁਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਚੁਣਨਾ ਹੈ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨੂੰ ਚੁਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ ਜੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਸਮਾਰਟਫੋਨ ਤੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ ਤਾਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਿਸ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਜ਼ੂਮ ਨੂੰ ਲੈਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਉਸ ਤੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖੋਗੇ ਕਿ ਤਿੰਨ ਛੋਟੀਆਂ-ਛੋਟੀਆਂ ਬਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਬਣੀਆਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ ਤਿੰਨ ਤੋਂ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਬਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਵੀ ਹੋ ਸਕਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਥੱਲੇ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਦੇਖੋਗੇ ਸਕਰੀਨ ਦੇ ਹੇਠਾਂ ਦੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੱਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਤੇ ਬਣਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਤਿੰਨ ਬਿੰਦੀਆਂ ਹੋਣਗੀਆਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਵੇਖਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਜਿੱਥੇ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਕਿ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਦਾ ਅਨੁਵਾਦ ਯਾਨੀ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜ ਇੰਟਰਪ੍ਰੀਟੇਸ਼ਨ ਲਿਖਿਆ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਉੱਥੇ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਚੁਣ ਲੈਣਾ ਆਪਣੀ ਜਿਹੜੀ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੁਣਨਾ ਚਾਹੁੰਦੇ ਹੋ ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਚੁਣ ਸਕਦੇ ਹੈਗੇ ਹੋ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਚੁਣ ਲਿਆ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਉਹਦੇ ਬਾਅਦ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਕਹਿ ਦੇਣਾ ਹੈਗਾ ਡਨ ਯਾਨੀ ਮੇਰਾ ਕੰਮ ਹੋ ਗਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਜੋ ਕਿ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਉੱਪਰ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਕੰਪਿਊਟਰ ਦੇ ਜਾਂ ਫੋਨ ਦੇ ਬਿਲਕੁਲ ਉੱਪਰ ਦੇ ਹਿੱਸੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸੱਜੇ ਪਾਸੇ ਹੋਏਗਾ ਠੀਕ ਹੈ ਜੀ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ
Hello and good afternoon, everyone that's tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us today. Again, I want to welcome you to the fiscal year 25-26 policy work group for the Clean Truck Bus and Voucher Incentive Project, also known as HVIP. As I mentioned earlier, my name is April, and I am joined here today by our fabulous HVIP team who will be presenting shortly. Before we get started, I want to go over some logistics for today's discussion. First, this meeting is being recorded. You'll be able to check out a copy of this recording as well as a list of attendees on our meeting and workshop page in approximately 2 weeks. Next, we'll be using Zoom's raised hand feature to facilitate comments and questions. If there is a Zoom disruption for any reason, including malicious intent, we will immediately end today's Zoom meeting and send out another notice to reschedule. If you have called in, we will adjust your phone number and call on you based on the last 4 digits of your phone number when you raise your hand. Now let's take a look at our meeting agreements. For today's meeting, we ask that CARB staff and attendees follow a set of meeting agreements. The first agreement is that we be respectful. Let's be kind to each other and create space where everyone feels comfortable sharing their opinions and experiences. Second, we have to take space and make space. If you're usually quiet, challenge yourself to take more space. If you usually talk a lot, be mindful to leave room for quieter voices. Listen to understand. Let's practice active listening to each other. And finally, we want to develop solutions with equity in mind. Remember, equity is the idea that not everyone starts from the same place, but some may have unique advantages or barriers. We want to recognize the barriers that exist in some communities in order to tailor solutions to their unique challenges. We're joined today with folks from all over California, and each person's community is unique in the barriers and advantages they face. Different perspectives from various interested parties are important in this conversation. However, we're focused on overcoming the barriers. Now, with that in mind, with those agreements, let's continue our meeting. So today's agenda. The work group meeting is focused on 25-26 policy recommendations for HVIP. Inder is going to start us off by talking about how we plan to respond to truck cost concerns and discuss specific requests received from stakeholders recently, with time for questions after. Then Luis will give an overview of our proposed vehicle eligibility testing criteria, of course, followed by question and answers as well. Due to a limited amount of time and large number of attendees, we ask that each commenter limit their feedback to approximately 2 minutes to ensure everyone has an opportunity to speak. We will complete the meeting at 3 p.m. sharp. I'll kick it over to you, Inder.
Thank you, April. And are we going to get the slides?
Do you see them?
I don't see them. Does anyone else see them?
Yes, I see them.
Okay, cool. All right. There it goes. They're showing up now. All right. So for the first slide, we can go to the About HVIP slide. All right. The California Air Resources Board launched the hybrid and zero emission truck and bus voucher incentive project in 2009 to accelerate the adoption of cleaner, more efficient trucks and buses. Through this program, vouchers are applied directly to dealers at the time of purchase, lowering the upfront cost paid by fleets. Since its inception, HVIP has funded more than 14,800 clean vehicles, supported over 2,000 participating fleets, and provided approximately $875 million in redeemed vouchers, making it one of California's most impactful programs for advancing zero-emission transportation. And just an update, we did open up HVIP this morning with some funds that were returned to the project from unredeemed vouchers, and we've had robust demand today. And so over 150 million, I believe, has already been accounted for in terms of pending vouchers. So very robust demand today. Next slide. Responding to truck cost concerns, the California Air Resources Board is addressing concerns about the high cost of zero-emission trucks, particularly heavy-duty Class 8 models. The board has asked staff to explore potential cost control mechanisms to ensure incentive funds drive real price reductions rather than being absorbed by inflated vehicle costs. A recent CARB analysis comparing Class 8 truck prices in the United States and Europe offers important insights into cost structures and global benchmarks. Looking ahead, CARB's goal is to calibrate incentive amounts to both accelerate the adoption of clean truck technologies and maintain fiscal responsibility. As part of this effort, a proposed policy pathway forward would be gradually phase down of voucher incentive amounts, which could send a clear market signal for manufacturers to lower costs while still providing fleets meaningful support during the transition to zero-emission vehicles. Next slide. Our initial policy proposal to address the high cost of zero-emission trucks is a gradual phase down of voucher incentive amounts. At present, voucher levels are designed to achieve cost parity with diesel trucks using a 3-year total cost of ownership benchmark. The proposed pathway would reduce voucher amounts by 5% annually over 3 years, giving fleets and manufacturers a predictable and transparent timeline. This phased reduction is intended to send a clear market signal that truck prices should decline as the industry matures, ensuring that incentives promote genuine cost reductions while still providing meaningful support to fleets during the transition to zero-emission technology. Next slide. Another cost control mechanism that has been considered could be the use of an MSRP cap. However, implementing such a cap presents several challenges. Unlike passenger cars, which almost always have manufacturers' suggested retail prices or MSRPs, most trucks do not, making consistent application difficult. The truck market is also highly diverse, with a wide range of vehicle types and prices within weight classes, complicating the ability to set a fair and effective cap. Moreover, a price ceiling could unintentionally exclude certain models, limiting fleet options at a time when flexibility is essential. Stakeholders have also expressed concerns that current market volatility make it especially difficult to establish caps that remain relevant and equitable as price continues to fluctuate. Next slide. In addition to cost controls, CARB has received a range of stakeholder feedback on potential policy changes that we are considering and seeking further input on. Suggestions include providing incentives for renewable natural gas trucks, Class 2B zero-emission pickup work trucks, as well as graduating all Class 2B and 3 zero-emission vehicles as the markets mature. Stakeholders have also called for increased incentives for zero-emission transit buses, stronger manufacturer eligibility criteria, improvements to program operations such as reducing voucher processing timelines. And finally, there is continued emphasis on monitoring compliance with the implementation manual to ensure accountability and program integrity. As always, we must weigh proposals and expansion of HVIP eligibility against constrained budget concerns and HVIP's guiding principles. And as indicated earlier, we have had a robust demand for our vouchers, and it looks like a significant portion of those vouchers have already been in the process of being accounted for. And so we do need to keep that in mind, especially with a forward-looking constraint on budget. Next slide.
Thank you, Ender, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jessica Monterosa, and I'll be facilitating comments and questions this afternoon. We will now open the floor for everyone to ask questions about logistics, technical issues, or anything we have covered in the presentation so far. If you'd like to make a comment or ask a question, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. For those using Zoom online, please click on the Raise Hand option on the Zoom navigation bar under the Participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the Raise Hand option in the More tab. For those who are participating by telephone, please sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, along with your question. I will now begin to call on the raised hands, and we will begin with Nico Rowe. Are you able to unmute yourself? Just a second as we have another one of our staff members unmute your mic. Okay. All right, Nico Rice, are you able to unmute yourself now?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Please state your name and affiliation before asking your question.
Yes, so my name is Nicole Rice, and I'm the president of the California Renewable Transportation Alliance. I had a comment to make. Can I do that at this time?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. The California Renewable Transportation Alliance urges CARB to provide incentives for renewable natural gas trucks under HVIP, while zero-emission trucks and infrastructure continues to scale. These trucks represent a cleaner combustion alternative to diesel, especially given that the Cummins X15N engine is certified to the toughest NOx emission standards at 50 milligrams, which currently represents the most stringent standard in the country. This action would directly support CARB's mobile source strategy goals of reducing criteria pollutants, toxic air contaminants, and reducing GHG emissions. And what we are recommending that CARB does is provide a $50,000 per truck incentive that would be payable directly to the end user to help cover the cost differential when purchasing a natural gas truck. And this will help fleets maximize their return on investment. We also ask that the incentives be made available immediately and sustained over multiple years to accelerate fleet conversion to the cleanest available combustion technology. And last week, we asked that these incentives be available to both large and small fleets to reduce barriers that small fleets face when adopting clean technology and clean vehicles. I'll conclude by saying RNG trucks can offer a commercially ready and cost-effective solution that delivers real environmental benefits for today. And I appreciate the opportunity to make these comments.
Thank you for your comments, Nicole. They have been recorded for the public record.
Thank you.
Up next, we have Veronica Pardo. You should be able to unmute yourself now.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Veronica Pardo. I'm the Executive Director of the Resource Recovery Coalition of California. And I'd like to support the comments just made by Nicole Rice of the California Renewable Transportation Alliance. My members, who are haulers, recyclers, and composters, rely on heavy-duty vehicles to collect and manage materials to protect the health and safety of communities and ensure that putrescible waste is removed from our streets. And natural gas trucks are an excellent way to move these materials, but in particular, renewable natural gas is an incredible opportunity to do full circle, where you collect organic materials and produce renewable natural gas to then fuel those trucks. So we are in strong support of this program and appreciate the opportunity to make these comments today. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Veronica. Up next, we have Tom Van Heek. You're now able to unmute yourself.
Thanks, Jessica. Tom Van Heek, Senior Policy Advisor at Rivian Automotive. We, among other things, manufacture medium-duty electric vans and pickups. And on that note, just want to pick up on the mention on the previous slide of stakeholder comments requesting inclusion of medium-duty pickups in the HVIP program. Rivian certainly strongly supports that call and would urge and encourage the staff to take a close look at that. The medium heavy duty sector is, of course, diverse and very large, but pickups are the workhorse of the medium and heavy duty fleet. They're a significant share of sales in the on-road medium and heavy duty park. And certainly everything in California's strategy for reducing emissions and achieving its carbon neutrality goals suggests that segment's going to have to electrify as fast as any other. And we certainly think fleets can use a little bit of help to get there. So we're excited to see that mention on that previous slide. Respectfully encourage the agency to give that a close look and look forward to including that in our comments.
Thank you for your comments today, Tom. Up next, we have Christian Corby. You are now allowed to unmute yourself.
Yes, hello. My name is Christian Corby, and I'm the Deputy Director at the California Electric Transportation Coalition, or CalETC. And really want to thank CARB for all their hard work on HVIP. It does look like there's been significant demand today, just on the opening day of HVIP. So really good to see. And then I just wanted to ask, it looks like the proposal is to begin reducing voucher amounts by 5% next year. And I just wanted to confirm that that's the case, and just perhaps suggest that we make sure we're keeping an eye on the market and making sure that the cost of trucks is in fact getting closer to parity with their diesel counterparts before we start reducing voucher amounts too much. So just wanted to flag that for you.
Appreciate that, Christian. And part of the calculus there is that we're looking right now, we cover 100% of the incremental cost. And so we would be looking to do like 95% and reduce there on down. So that's kind of the calculus there. And so part of that input is going to be where prices are, what the incremental difference is, and to kind of make sure that we're covering still whatever the market is doing. So I'm hoping that part of the calculus will kind of take into account market conditions. So.
Okay, great. Yeah, thanks, Ender. I appreciate that. And then just a quick question too. It doesn't say explicitly on the slides about the MSRP caps. Are you guys thinking you're going to hold off for now on recommending any MSRP caps?
Yeah, so we really see this incentive incremental reduction as a substitute for an MSRP cap, and that's going to be our recommendation.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Christian. Up next, we have Rich Blaustein. You're now allowed to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you very much for this very timely webinar. My name is Rich Blaustein. I'm a journalist with Climate Brief, published by the Continuing Education of the Bar of California. I just have a question on funding. So this phase that opened today comes from unredeemed vouchers. And if you could explain also the money from the lawsuit, and then where will what does future funding depend upon? Legislative action, and is there any activity on that this week or next week in the Senate or the Assembly? Thank you.
So, Richard, you are correct that the funding that was released today is from unredeemed vouchers. So vouchers that were canceled or by the purchaser or for other reasons, and were kind of returned to the pot through the natural course of redemption processing in HVIP. And so that's what you're seeing being released today. The Hino settlement money is still not allocated yet because we have a proposal in the funding plan, and that'll go to the board, and the board will make a final decision on where that goes. But we are proposing that money be introduced to HVIP standard, and so that's going to be available next year and in the next funding year, and released at that time. And then kind of going forward, it is up to the legislature to allocate money to HVIP, and so it's to that whole budget process will determine whether we get additional funding in future years.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rich. Up next, we have Adriano Martinez. You're now allowed to unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Adrian Martinez, and I'm with Earth Justice. I have a couple questions about the natural gas set aside or allowing natural gas or methane burning trucks into the HVIP program. I guess the one question is, I don't know what a renewable natural gas burning truck is. It just seems like it either burns methane or not. And so it's not clear to me, does this signal a policy shift where the California Air Resources Board will start saying, hey, we only fund renewable hydrogen trucks, for example? And so I'm a little curious about that. And then second, I was appreciative at the top of the meeting, the encouragement to consider equity in comments in the program. And I haven't heard any communities call for shifting precious HVIP resources to methane burning trucks. And so I wanted to get a sense of where staff is on that. Have they consulted with the AB 617 advisory committees, or what type of equity outreach has gone to this, what seems to be a pretty significant shift in proposal to fund methane burning trucks? Thank you.
So not necessarily a policy shift here. we've just received a number of stakeholder comments. And so we want to be attentive to those as we are in every funding plan cycle. We want to make clear that nothing here is final, and we are still developing proposals. And so we're just kind of looking for input from the public and stakeholders. So. Jessica, you're on mute.
Thank you, Ender. Up next, we have David Farion. You're now allowed to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. My name is David Farion. I'm the Chief Executive for the California Waste and Recycling Association. We're comprised of private and public waste haulers in the Southern California marketplace, with approximately 5,000 to 6,000 trucks in the region. As noted on your slides, we would just like to encourage the board to allow the renewable natural gas vehicles to be a part of the HVIP program. Again, I think we've been kind of the pioneers in running clean burning vehicles over the past 25 years. These vehicles are very important as we move towards electrification. And so we would encourage you to continue to include them in the program and fund them going forward. So again, appreciate the opportunity to speak, and we'll look forward to what happens next. Thanks.
Thank you for your comment, David. We have about 5 more minutes for questions, so I would encourage people to take about a minute or so to ask the question or make their comment so we can get through them as many as possible. Up next, we have Adam Browning. You are now allowed to unmute yourself.
Hey, thank you. I'm sorry, is this just for questions, or if we have a comment or reflection on what's been presented
Yes,
so
both
far?
questions or comments right now.
Wonderful, thank you. I guess a couple of things. First, on the potential proposals to either have MSRP caps or reductions in incentive amounts. I've always appreciated your CARB's willingness to look at additional ways to help drive down truck costs. I guess my challenge right now is in this era of tariffs. There's a lot of the OEMs that don't always know exactly what their costs going into manufacturing trucks are right now, and a lot of the inputs are going up. And I just would encourage a consideration of that as a somewhat challenging time to introduce this. The second issue is around the idea of voucher amounts decreasing going forward. I would encourage you, I will file some comments to this point, but think about that in terms of in a co-alignment with long-term funding certainty. I think the idea is that you throw out that there is going to be long-term funding, yet the funding amounts go down. If it is still year to year, I don't know that as a policy mechanism would work quite as well. Finally, on the question of inclusion of the renewable natural gas, I would just point out that, the zero emission trucking sector right now has had a whole lot of policy mechanisms pulled. And this is basically all that we have left is the HVIP incentive amounts. And you mentioned that, we've had about a half day of the HVIP funding window reopened, and there was over 150 million, if I understood you correctly, already processed. I know we've thrown in some quite a bit, and we've got more customers still in line. And so, I certainly would support keeping this limited amount of funds focused on the best bang for the buck and leveraging this unique opportunity to drive a true market transition for true zero emission trucks going forward, and would recommend that you keep this program focused on zero emission. those are my comments. We'll provide more in writing and really appreciate your reach out on these difficult and challenging policy questions.
Thank you, Adam, for your comments. Up next, we have Emily Stevens. Now allow yourself to unmute your mic.
Hi, thank you. My name is Emily Stevens with TRC, and I just had a clarifying question for Inder. You said that $150 million have already been accounted for, and was that across like standard small fleets, dredge, and the ports, or is that just standard?
So we've only got it's 150 across all set asides. We haven't got the detailed data yet. So.
Okay, beautiful. And do you know when the website will be updated with new numbers?
It's usually done on a daily basis, so we're hopeful that it should be re-updated tomorrow.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily. Up next, we have Peter Urowski. I'll now allow for you to unmute yourself.
Yes, my name is Peter Okarowski. I'm with the California Council for Environmental and Economic Balance, or CEEB. And CEEB has long supported a portfolio approach for clean vehicles, and we support others who are requesting that CARB fund clean combustion, such as clean natural gas trucks under the HVIP program, as one strategy to achieve substantial GHG reductions and help meet the health-based ambient air quality standards. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Up next, we have Lynette Sapienza.
Hi, thank you for the opportunity today. My name is Lynette Sapienza, Principal Consultant with Dome Innovation Partnership. As Tom from Rivian mentioned, very happy to see that pickup trucks were at least on the slide. Is that a potential for 25, 26 for the 2B pickup trucks to be included?
We are evaluating all of those stickler comments, and we'll have an updated funding plan. So could potentially be included in this year's funding plan cycle. And it's a good opportunity for me to remind folks that kind of just how that process works. We are drafting the funding plan right now, and it'll be released for public comment in October. And so there'll be another opportunity for folks to see the final proposals that we make before they go to the board and comment on them. And so, yeah, definitely anything on that slide is potentially available, and we're looking for input today on those. So as we develop that, the final funding plan recommendations.
Thank you, Ender. One more comment. I know you guys are looking at reducing funding in some areas. One thing I would like to mention that something we would like to have considered is that 99% of these, 98 to 99% of these fleets are actually small fleets, and for them getting over the first hurdle, that first vehicle, whether it's a 2B, a 3, a 4, whatever they're in, is really the struggle. We would like to see on that list of proposals maybe a plus up or an increase for that first vehicle. Just the first one, not a whole bunch after that, but to get them to the point where they can understand the opportunity, experience it, and then hopefully long-term you don't need as many incentives because it sells itself once they have one of those vehicles in the fleet. I don't know if that's something that's being considered, but that first vehicle is a struggle to get a lot of, especially small fleets, to try out.
Thank you, Lynette. Up next, we have Brian Kenny, and I was just informed we do have a few more minutes to ask questions, so we'll go through them, and I will also turn things over to some email questions. So up next, we have Brian Kenny. I've allowed you to unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Brian Kenny with Clean Energy. We also are very supportive of the previous comments and the possible concept to allow incentives for trucks operating at 50 milligram NOx or cleaner, operated on low carbon and carbon negative renewable natural gas. That is the lowest carbon fuel on the planet. And this is because this is a vital moment to address both clean air and climate change goals. Near-term emission reductions are necessary after the recent federal actions. And I want to bring two studies to your attention just for the record. Due to CARB's leadership, the cleanest available ICE trucks on the road today are those that are certified to heavy-duty omnibus 50 milligram standard or for NOx, especially if they also operate on renewable fuels like RNG. Energy Vision published a study in March of this year called The Path to a Healthier America, Ditching Older Diesel Trucks, which found that RNG trucks deliver 88% of the benefits of electric vehicles. There was also a May 2025 study that was published by UC Riverside, which shows an outsized emission reduction effects of replacing older heavy-duty diesel engines with new diesel or renewable natural gas models, regardless of EV adoption. That study is called The Impacts of Improving Heavy-Duty Internal Combustion Engine Technology on Reducing NOx Emission Inventories Going into the Future. The UCR study can be considered a forward-looking complement to the Energy Vision study back in March of 2025. So this is really about the near-term emission reductions and how we can get those from both medium and heavy-duty trucks in California. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment, Ryan. Up next, I'll hand it over to April for some email questions.
Thank you, Jessica. I did receive an email from Dominique with Ford. I was going to read it, but I see that her hand is also raised. So do you want me to read it, Dominique, or do you want us to call on you? Either one's fine. Oh, you can't answer. Sorry, let me unmute you.
Yeah, I've asked her. Dominique, you're allowed to unmute yourself.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you very much. So, hello, my name is Dominic DeSico, Manager, Environment and Energy Policy at Ford Motor Company. Thank you to California and CARB for the HVIP program and appreciate the allocation of funding to support commercial customers purchasing of zero-emission vehicles. I, too, would like to encourage the inclusion of commercial pickup trucks, such as the Ford F-150 Lightning, under the HVIP program. It is our belief that the Ford F-150 Lightning, a fully electric pickup truck, is a clear fit and possesses all the characteristics necessary to qualify and aligns well with the California HVIP program. The F-150 Lightning's robust design, impressive payload, and towing capacities, as well as available work truck configurations, make it a versatile option for various commercial applications. By embracing the F-150 Lightning pickup truck and other pickup trucks within the California HVIP program and prioritizing commercial fleet electrification, California will continue to solidify its position as a leader in clean transportation. Thank you for the opportunity to provide these comments.
Thank you, Dominique, for your comments. Up next, we have Sherry Merrill. I'm now allow you to unmute yourself.
Thank you. As you said, I'm Sherry Merrill, and I am with the Transport Project. The Transport Project is a national coalition of vehicle and engine manufacturers and dealers, servicers and suppliers, and fuel producers and providers dedicated to the decarbonization of North America's transportation sector without compromising existing commercial business operations. Natural gas vehicles, and especially RNG natural gas vehicles, played a major role in California's transportation emissions reductions to date. And even greater reductions are possible today with the newer engines that are available. RNG NGVs are proven, available, affordable, lower emissions, use a domestic fuel, and fit current business models. The Transport Project agrees with the points made by Nicole Rice of CRTA and others, and CARB, and adds our voice to ask that CARB support these recommendations to include RNG and GVs. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Sherry. Up next, we have Justin Paddock. I'll now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi, thank you. Justin Paddock on behalf of WM, who supports the inclusion of incentives for RNG trucks alongside with battery electric and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Justin. Up next, we have Fernando Marquez Duarte. I've now allowed you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Sorry, we lost you there for a second. Are you able to unmute yourself?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
So, thank you, Fernando Marquez Duarte, policy researcher with the People's Collective for Environmental Justice, and just wanted to share a couple comments. This program is supposed to advance the zero emission transition, and the end goal should be benefiting the health and the environment of our communities. Just to remind you all, we have people dying every day thanks due to pollution and due to the lack of real enforceable regulations that foster real zero emission technologies. Natural gas and hydrogen are not zero emission. They release polluting emissions to the air. And there's a study made by the UC Berkeley School of Public Policy, published in 2021, that shows that without proper zero emission technology, we will keep losing the lives of 14 people every day in California. That's over 5,000 people every year from 2021 to 2050. Because the study estimates that 150,000 lives could be saved and prevent deaths due to pollution if zero emission technologies are in place. Moreover, the National Institute of Health, which is, a public institution, describes that the production of methane, ethanol, and biomass gas, which are what you call renewable natural gas, all generate polluting emissions such as particulate matters 2.5, particulate matters 10, carbon dioxide, nitrogen oxides that cause damage to the health of the communities, such as cancer, asthma, and other respiratory diseases. And the National Institute of Health also describes this gas as reasonably anticipated to be a human carcinogen. Moreover, regarding hydrogen, over 93% of current production of hydrogen in the US is dirty hydrogen. What does that mean? That means that the production of hydrogen is blue or gray or brown, which burns fuels to generate it, which releases polluting emissions to the air. Right now, we need to focus on battery electric vehicles. Those are the only technology currently that is accessible in the US that doesn't release any polluting emissions to the air. And so I think that we should focus, and CARB should focus in real zero emission technologies that benefit the health of the communities, because what is the point of having these incentive programs if public funds that are paid by our taxes are going to technologies that are just keep polluting and emissions are not being reduced? So again, it's important to focus on real zero emission technologies, which we will suggest it's battery electric by the
Thank you, Fernando, for your comments. Up next, we have Jacqueline Moore. I now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi there, Jacqueline Moore, the Pacific Merchant Shipping Association, representing members of the marine terminals that operate on the West Coast, as well as others in the greater transportation industry. I did want to talk a bit about the reducing of the truck voucher amounts by 15%. That's pretty significant. The truck market just unfortunately hasn't matured to that level to really call for reducing the voucher amounts. And much less the infrastructure needed to support these trucks, and decreasing the voucher amounts could then decrease deployment of chargers. So it would be a losing circle. So I know we are always overprescribed, very much appreciate that, but a bit premature, I think, to talk about those truck vouchers at this point. And of course, the return funds kind of point to other issues, but that's another comment. My question about this is this proposed because in part of the significant funds that the ports have and will contribute, or was that a factor playing into this concept? Thank you.
So just to clarify, it's not 15%. It's a gradual drawdown of what we cover in terms of the incentive amount. And part of it is some of the cost studies that we've seen, and some of the studies were released to the board. The board wanted us to look for different ways to put pressure on the market to be comparable with other markets. So essentially we're seeing pricing that's more competitive in different countries, and we're not seeing that pricing here. And we want to make sure our incentives aren't artificially inflating prices in California. And so I think that's the underlying goal of this proposal. And again, it's still, we're taking comments, and we definitely haven't set anything in stone. And we're looking to come up with a proposal and present that in the funding plan in October.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Ender.
Thank you, Jacqueline. Up next, we have Matt Schreck. I'll now allow you to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Jessica, and thank you to the HVIP and CARB team for putting on this webinar today here on World EV Day. Exciting times. I would tend to agree with my colleague from PMSA, as well as Mr. Adam Browning from Foreign Mobility, regarding the reduction year over year. Although a 5% pullback doesn't seem like much, if we're in an era right now of trying to encourage, especially the heaviest vehicles on the road, those being the Class 8 heavy duty trucks that, the community groups have been very vocal about wanting to see turned over into advanced technologies, especially battery electric, that shifting funding away, not only lowering the overall amounts, but putting money towards lighter duty pickup trucks that don't nearly have the same emissions footprint as a heavy duty Class 8, especially when compared to within a freight market that is extremely challenging right now. Understanding wanting to encourage lower prices, and when compared to other markets overseas, I fear that it will more or less just deter people away from wanting to utilize the equipment with some of those other OEMs who might be still recouping costs from the millions of dollars they put into R&D, the batteries that they had secured pricing for at very high levels, that those OEMs might perhaps just leave the marketplace. So if we want to get the most emissions reductions, we should be focusing on the heaviest vehicles out there, including drayage, to allow them to continue to stack with whatever other incentives are out there, but keeping that consistent base amount in HVIP and not reducing it just merely for the fact of starting to support light duty pickup trucks. The emissions profiles are vastly different, and I would tend to think that our friends in the environmental justice community would agree that if we're going to be spending state funds, we need to be expending them on the largest emissions reductions possible. So I look forward to hearing more dialogue on that from the attendees here, and also some more insight into the dealer reimbursement process. I'm curious if ARB has endeavored to lock in a group of dealers who have been going through HVIP now for the past, 10 years, to get an understanding from them about some of the challenges that they're facing, as opposed to a larger public forum where their perspectives may get drowned out by some of these other more controversial issues, like including pickup trucks in HVIP. Very much so would we encourage ARB staff to reach out to those dealers. I know that they've reached out to you, but having something official that would amount to a dealers council or something to that effect that would help facilitate more efficient dialogue, effective dialogue on how to make the reimbursement process more efficient, I think would be a step in the right direction. So thank you again for the time, and appreciate the efforts here.
Matt, thanks for the comments. As for the dealer council, the last bit, we have started internally discussing that, and I know CalSTART, one of our contractors that helps us facilitate HVIP, does meet with most of the dealers on a regular basis, and so we're trying to coordinate that with CARB staff as well to get that process going. And again, I think to reiterate what we're talking about in terms of incentive incremental reduction. So we're currently recovering 100%. We're looking to reduce it by 5% next year, and then kind of reevaluate and take steps forward. But we did want to kind of signal the direction of that proposal, where it's going. And so I think there's pretty good amount of room to, shift policy if we needed to, if there was a market effect that was inadvertently happening. So that's probably built into that proposal as well. So I think that's kind of where the direction we're going to. But again, we will have take comments today, and then any kind of written comments after today's work group, reconvene, and then kind of go through the process of writing a final recommendation to the board, release that in October, and then look forward to final comments at that point.
Great. Thank you, Ender.
Thank you, Matt. Now we do have just about 5 minutes to get through the final comments. For anybody who's unable to get through their questions or comments, we will have another section at the end of this meeting, another 30-minute period for additional comments and questions if we don't get to you at this moment. But up next, we have Lisa McGee, and now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi, yeah, it's Lisa McGee with Construct Center. So I want to echo some of the things that I heard as it relates to the incremental, and I know that you're planning on using the reduced incentive versus the MSRP cap, but I'm not so sure that the reasoning's any different in terms of why they implement it. So I'm going to echo that I don't think the time is right yet when we look at the overall number of manufacturers that have participated in the program and the actual volume of each of those types of trucks meaning specifically by the class. The volume is very, very low when you look at it. I'll just use one big example as one OEM. BYD has been in the program the longest in terms of zero emission. They haven't even hit 1,000 units yet in terms of just on their own, and they've been in the program longer than 10 years. So I just think looking at a deep dive into where we're at will have an impact on what the cost of that truck is for these OEMs to build and deliver them, and to keep them in their plant to facilitate for our sales opportunities. And then looking at our overall kind of goals of where we're at and how far we've come. We've got 1.3 million medium heavy duty registered trucks in California alone. Class 2B and 3 make up about 60% of that. I do think I'm going to echo what Matt was saying. We need to focus on the Class 8 and heavy duty trucks in order to make sure we're getting the best vehicle miles traveled benefit from these programs. And on the reduced incentive, I just want to also make a comment that if we're going to be looking at it and providing, I guess, supporting information, I want to make sure that we're looking at on the total cost of ownership side. It's not just about a new truck. Many of these operators, without these good incentives, we also have to make sure we're looking at the secondary market. over 50% of these independent owner operators are definitely making decisions with the secondary market. And so when we're comparing these two types of choices, we still have the federal excise tax on the class 7 and 8 trucks, which out the door, that's another 23% between sales tax and a federal excise tax. So that is another cost. And I just want to make sure we're not missing some of these important evaluations that come into play for an out the door cost for the customer. And then are we also looking at the tariffs that will have another impact on today's price, as well as new model years, since you guys haven't seen the new model years since we've been shut down for a while. So making sure that we get to look at that, which will already include tariffs. And then last but not least, I just want to say, I do think we do need to visit how maybe a class 2B, but also a class 2A pickup truck might be considered a benefit for especially the independent owner operators that primarily use these trucks for commercial purposes. And then on the dealer advisory group side, I think we need to come up with not only the redemption process timeline, but a resolution for timelines and a response timeline. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa, for your comments.
Did you want to take one more, Jessica, or do you want to transition over to
Sure, I'll take one last one. The next one, the last one today will be John McNamara. Everyone else will have an opportunity to talk at the end of the next segment. John McNamara, and I've allowed you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you for letting me make a comment. I'm John McNamara with CR&R. We've been operating CNG, natural gas, refuse collection vehicles for 20 years. And we make our own renewable natural gas, a facility in Riverside where we can fuel our own trucks with fuel made from organic waste. So we support the use of the HVIP funds for renewable natural gas vehicles for heavy duty trash trucks. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Just as a comment, you had some feedback on your audio, but we were able to capture your comments. I'll hand things over to Inder so we can transition on to the next topic.
Yeah, so I'm going to hand it over to Luis. Luis is going to do the next slides on the vehicle testing proposals that him and his team have put together. And so I'll hand it over to you, Luis.
Thanks, Inder. So my name is Luis Ornelas. I am the lead carb staff for HVIP eligibility. So in the next few slides, I will be going over CARB's truck testing proposal for HVIP eligibility. So staff seeks to enhance the vehicle eligibility review process to include truck testing starting early 2026. For this proposal, staff would be leveraging from existing testing methods outlined in the Society of Automotive Engineers Standard J1634 with minor modifications as needed to accommodate the various vehicle classes. For this proposal, staff seeks to implement a phase-in approach where we'd start with the lowest truck class receiving the higher voucher amounts and continue to add vehicle classes until all trucks seeking HVIP eligibility can be tested as part of the eligibility process. Given CARB's state-of-the-art Riverside facility, staff proposes all testing be done at CARB and by CARB staff. This means that a vehicle manufacturer would have to arrange truck drop-off at the Riverside facility at their cost. Staff also welcomes OEMs to volunteer their vehicles to support program and testing developments. We can go to the next slide. So per the staff proposal, the goal is to have truck testing be a part of the eligibility review process without significantly altering the review time. As part of the phase-in approach, staff would also consider truck testing for trucks that have been previously received CARB approval. Industry can play a key role on how we implement this process and reduce and even eliminate unnecessary delays. And we can move on to the next slide, please. Staff would like to request informal written feedback from the public and vehicle manufacturers on the topics covered today. Proposed vehicle testing method, phase-in approach, and implementation timeline. Staff will consider an additional work group for implementing the testing procedure in early 2026. This proposal will be captured in the funding plan, which is released for public comments on October 10th, 2025, with board consideration in November 2025. Staff will consider an additional work group before implementing testing procedures in early 2026 to inform the public of our final decision regarding the HVIP truck testing proposal presented today.
Thank you, Luis, for your presentation. Again, I'll be facilitating this portion of the comments in question. We will now open the floor for everybody to ask questions about anything we have covered so far. If you'd like to make a comment, as before, please use the webinar feature to raise your hand. For those using Zoom online, please click Raise Hand option in the Zoom navigation bar, which is found under the Participants tab. For those using Zoom on a mobile application, please click on the Raise Hand option in the More tab. And for those who are participating by telephone, please be sure to press #2 and we will call on you accordingly. Please include your name and affiliation, if any, along with your question or comment. We will also be checking the email for any questions and comments. Up first, we'll have Marisa Brown. I'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. My comment is on the previous section. So Marissa Brown, Transportation Equity Program Manager at the Green Mining Institute. Thank you so much to the HVIP staff for your work and opportunity to provide comment on this. As a comment in response to providing incentives for renewable natural gas trucks, a 2021 study called A Comparison of Nitrogen Oxide Emissions from Heavy-Duty Diesel, Natural Gas, and Electric Vehicles by the International Council on Clean Transportation found that natural gas trucks may have even worse consequences for health and air quality than diesel trucks due to significant poor on-road in-use performance. They also found catalysts used to control NOx from natural gas engines can produce very high levels of ammonia, which is a toxic precursor to particulate matter 2.5 formation. For this reason, we ask that this pot of funding, this small pot of funding, which is being reduced year after year, be reserved for electric vehicles. We ask that CARB honor what Californians most impacted by transportation pollution have been asking for years, which is to fund electric vehicles to displace the tailpipe emissions emitted by diesel and natural gas vehicles. Secondly, I have a question which was asked previously but was not answered. It was asked by Adrian Martinez from Earth Justice, which is, has this presentation and policy change particular to providing incentives for renewable natural gas trucks been presented to the AB 617 sites, which for those who don't know, those are sites that are significantly impacted by transportation pollution? Have they seen this information? Have they been notified of this policy change? As many of their plans state plainly that electrification is the path forward for their community. Has CARB done this? Community outreach.
So just to reiterate again, that this is not a policy change. This is just a list of stakeholder comments that we are currently reviewing for potential inclusion in this year's funding plan. So that's the purpose of today's work group. And then we will have actual recommendations in our funding plan, draft funding plan that will be released in October. So we appreciate your comment and we'll take that up on board.
I guess my last comment would be to allow the 8617 sites opportunity to provide comments specifically on providing incentives for natural gas, renewable natural gas trucks. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your comments, Marisa. Up next, we have John Constantino. Now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. John Constantino on behalf of Love's Alternative Energy, providers of hydrogen, renewable natural gas, EV, and renewable diesel. Wanted to align my comments with those that Nicole Rice and Transport Project and others that support near-term heavy-duty reductions through RNG low NOx trucks. Just wanted to mention that Love's Alternative Energy just opened a brand new station, so infrastructure is important, and in the RNG space, it's robust. And if the focus really is near-term heavy-duty NOx reductions with no diesel particulate, then RNG is a good option for this program. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, John. Up next, we have Fernando Marquez Duarte. Now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi, Fernando Marquez Duarte, and I just had a question. Question and a comment that I think it's important as feedback for how to better take advantage of the HVIP program. In PSEDGE, I led a truck study that we are very close to publishing probably by the end of this month, where we wanted to know the perspective of truck drivers and community members on the transition to zero emission trucking. And one of the very salient comments of truck drivers were that all of them, but one, were not aware of any incentives that they could apply for to change, to transition to zero emission trucks. We interviewed and surveyed 24 truck drivers that drive through the area of the Inland Empire, and only one had applied to the incentives. And the fact that 23 of them didn't know at all what was CARB, what kind of incentives are, how to apply, was concerning. So my recommendation here will be to really the outreach plan of this incentive and other incentives that CARB has to really advance the transition and foster the transition of truck drivers to zero emission trucks, especially electric. It needs to be adapted to the necessities and the channels that truck drivers and community members use. Most of them would like to have the info in their email, would like to have information through community organizations that they already know. And because truck drivers, the sites where they got their information, most of them spread misinformation. And that's why they don't know what is happening, and they don't know the benefits of zero emission trucks, especially electric. So that's our recommendation. And when we have this report published, for sure we will share it with CARB. Thank you.
So I just want to make a note that for fleets, we have a special program called Cal Fleet Advisor. We'll drop the link in the chat for folks. They specifically help fleets kind of figure out options that work for them, kind of work through that whole decision tree and help them. And as well, we also have several zero emission ride and drive events throughout the state, all through the year, and a bunch of other events to kind of get the word out, show folks real life trucks that work in different applications, and kind of go through that. So we also additionally have evening community that give the opportunity folks that are working during the day and don't have the opportunity to come on these types of calls to kind of hear what's going on with the various incentive programs that CARB runs, even in the light duty space, and to kind of comment and give their perspective on things as well. So.
Yeah, and I know these programs and I appreciate that, but most truck drivers don't. So the way the outreach of these events and programs, and I know of the advisory program that you have, they don't reach truck drivers. So my comment is really focused on that, how to reach truck drivers with all the information in the channels that they get their info on. Thank you.
Thank you, Fernando. Up next, we have Lynette Sapienza.
Hi.
I'm now allowed you to unmute yourself. Hello.
Thank you, Jessica. Lynette Sapienza, Dome Innovation again. I just had one question on the truck testing. I think that's a great idea to ensure that the vehicles that get on the road have a chance of staying on the road. But what I wondered is, will CARB also be looking at having these OEMs have a guaranteed aftermarket support of parts and software for, say, 8, 10, 15 years, whatever it is, based on that class of vehicle, to give the users, especially these small businesses, confidence that their investment is something they can keep on the road and repair. If we want these fleets to convert, they need to know that, a year or two down the road, that vehicle isn't going to be basically a brick because they can't get parts or service on it.
Yeah, thank you, Lena, for that question. So, as you said, the vehicle testing is a response to stakeholder feedback regarding vehicle performance and user experience, and it's intended to create a level playing field for vehicle manufacturers. To your point about vehicle service, that is already currently in the HVIP eligibility to have that aftermarket sales, after sales service provisions. And we do take a look at manufacturers' warranty documentation to make sure they do support the end user for the duration of the HVIP operational period.
If they have not been doing that well, will that maybe make them ineligible or part of that testing requirement?
Yeah, we encourage fleets to reach out to us if the manufacturer is not fulfilling their end of the after sales service provisions.
Okay, thank you.
And if I just may add, Lynette, if you have any specific examples or thoughts on, what we're doing and what we could be doing differently or better to improve kind of your experience or what you're hearing, we also welcome that, and we welcome that throughout the year. We're always looking to make improvements to our program, make improvements to what we are doing. And, we're 100% in alignment with you in the regard that we do want these vehicles to be out there in the long run, not just for a year or two or whatever length of any incentive program is requiring. So definitely welcome your thoughts and input, after this workshop and even into the near future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lynette. Up next, we have Tim McRae. I'm now allowed you to unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. So my comments are on the previous section, and I apologize because I only heard a part of it. I had to join in progress. I will say that I've heard people talk about an MSRP cap. I know that that was discussed in a previous session, and we think that there's some serious pitfalls there. We would not recommend an MSRP cap. If instead you consider reduced incentives, I do think that it would probably be best to keep the incentives at the levels they were last year. That was the conversation we had at the last meeting of this, and we definitely support that. And I think that it would be best to keep it at last year's levels and see how that works going forward. I don't think you're going to get an overwhelm of the program and all of a sudden have no vouchers left. But that is our general position to keep levels at last year's levels and to not an MSRP cap. The one other thing that I will suggest, and I realize this is sounding like it's largely a conversation about standard HVIP, it's the case that on the bus side, and I know that HVIP is used for a transit set aside, that the state sales tax exemption for the sale of zero emission buses ends at the end of this year. And so that's another sort of thing that you should factor into the decision about how large to make incentives, because those zero emission bus sales have been absent sales tax for a number of years, and at least at the end of this year, if the legislature chooses to extend that exemption, it probably won't be until sometime next year. So there's going to be some sort of time in which transit buses are looking at even more costs that they're going to need to buy down. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the comment, Tim. It's definitely taken on board.
Thank you for that comment. Yes. Up next, we have Rodrigo Panza. I'll now allow you to unmute yourself.
Hi. Yeah, Rodrigo Panza from Tesla. It's engineering development in semi. I have a couple of questions about the proposal of CARB regarding the SMCT as driving cycle for testing. So I'd like to understand what kind of information are you trying to get from these tests? Is emissions or consumption or both? And how this information will be used to grant vouchers? And also why we have to use the same passenger vehicle test procedure into Class A trucks, which have much different use case, and how CARB is thinking to deal with the fact that Class A trucks tow different kinds of trailers, and that can have a big impact on these numbers. Thank you.
Thank you, Rodrigo. Thank you for the question. So the SMCT Plus was chosen for its ability to test multiple parameters in a short amount of time. To your point, we understand that commercial vehicles are different than passenger vehicles, and we do intend on making modifications to those test procedures outlined in the SAEJ 1634 to accommodate those vehicle classes. As far as what we are trying to collect in those vehicles, so we're really just looking to make sure that the vehicles can perform the standard, determine that the vehicles have the ability to safely perform the procedure. So as an example I can provide is the last part of the procedure includes a steady state depletion of the battery at highway speeds. So if a vehicle is not able to safely accelerate to those highway speeds and perform this portion of the test, then the vehicle would not be able to complete that standard. As far as what data we are trying to collect. The information that is measured is outlined in the standard procedure. Excuse me. Deviations to this procedure will be documented on a case-by-case basis if we do need to make those changes. So the data collected includes test conditions, battery capacity, distance per drive cycle, and discharge energy. So when we talk about making those modifications to accommodate for those different vehicle classes, we're not typically talking about changing the drive schedules, but instead changing the duration of the test to make sure that we accommodate those larger classes, as they do perform differently than the light duty vehicles.
Thank you, Luis.
Sorry. So just come back to my original question. So how this information will be used if it's going to be used? I'm not sure. That's what I'm asking. To actually grant vouchers to zero emission vehicles, and regarding the performance you mentioned, I think an important point is like what actually the mass of the Class 8 truck is actually holding or towing, because that will actually change a lot if the vehicle is able to achieve the performance you mentioned. So
yeah,
how we are deal with the trailer mass, for example.
Yeah, thank you for the follow-up. So I understand that. I think what you're asking is how the testing is going to be used for HVIP funds. So the test procedure itself does not have a pass-fail criteria, but we do want to make sure that the vehicle can perform all the tests outlined in the procedure. So the idea is that trucks looking to receive HVIP funding would need to perform these tests. As far as the loading of the vehicles, all of that is outlined in the test procedure. So we would just be going off of what the SAEJ 1634 standard outlines, with slight modifications by CARF staff review to accommodate those larger vehicle classes.
Thank you, Rodrigo and Luis. Up next, we have Christian Corby. And I'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Yes, hi, Christian Corby again from Cali TC. I'd like to recommend that CARB not adopt a vehicle test procedure this year, but instead hold a couple of workshops on this. I think I'd like to see how this vehicle test procedure overlaps with the ZEP certification process, existing warranties, the durability provided by OEMs, and the state vehicle code requirements. I think there's a lot of assurances out there that these vehicles will perform the way that they are required to, and I think there needs to be a little bit more of a deeper dive into how all these various requirements overlap before we implement testing procedures in the next year. And then on that, if CARB decides to move forward with this, I would strongly suggest that they allow OEMs to self-certify. The OEMs are, they're well qualified to self-certify on various safety and testing procedures, and they do in fact do that quite a bit. So they could provide the certifications from the testing that CARB is asking for directly to CARB. That would, could save considerable funds in terms of what the OEMs are required to do, and in terms of what CARB is required to do in testing. So those are just a couple of comments for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, and we will take those back. The current proposal is to test at the Carb Riverside facility, and we just want to leverage our state-of-the-art facility there and experienced staff to perform the testing. We are not currently considering third-party testing, but we're always open to the conversation, especially if it helps support continual testing over time.
Yeah, and I totally understand. I think I'm sure the facility and the staff are well versed in running these tests. I'd want to be clear too, I'm not suggesting that we get a third party involved, but just allow the OEMs themselves to self-certify.
Thank you, Christian. Up next, we have Andy Schwartz. I'll now allow you to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Well, first, thanks to CARB staff, as always, for hosting these stakeholder working groups. Yeah, I had a number of questions, some of which may overlap or be consistent with the commentary from a few of the other speakers. And I didn't mention I'm speaking on behalf of Tesla as well this afternoon. So first, I guess, related to the question that Christian just asked, or the proposal, I guess the question, or to reframe it as a question, would be, would CARB be open to considering exemption from having CARB do the testing if an OEM can provide the relevant data based on testing they've undertaken? So a little bit different maybe than self-certification, but I think in a similar vein. I mean, if we're doing kind of testing to validate the performance of these vehicles in a manner that's consistent with what CARB's hoping to achieve with this, could that serve as an alternative to having to go through the CARB testing process?
Yeah. Hi, Andy. So the intent is to test all the vehicles seeking HVIP eligibility. Being said, we anticipate the first 2 years of this being kind of a learning curve, how to efficiently implement and incorporate the lessons learned into an ongoing effort. So we welcome and encourage feedback on special considerations. Right now, there's a strong emphasis on class 4 through 6 vehicles, or trucks. Trucks class 4 through 6 is what we are focusing on at this state, with the intent to expand that out to all vehicles seeking eligibility. But yeah, we encourage feedback and reach out to us with any suggestions you might have.
Yeah, and Luis, I guess on that point then, so maybe I didn't understand the phase-in proposal. Is the idea that that the testing requirement would only apply initially to vehicle classes, those lower weight classes, and then the requirement to be tested would, be expanded to include other vehicle classes down the road?
Yeah, that's correct. So that phase-in approach, we're looking at phase 1, focusing on those trucks class 4 through 6, and also taking volunteers if an OEM would like to reach out and volunteer their vehicle to kind of enhance that testing procedure. And that would be class 4 through 6, early 2026, and open it up to other vehicle classes seeking HVIP eligibility.
Okay, but vehicles that haven't gone through the testing, i.e. those heavier duty vehicles or higher weight class vehicles, would continue to be eligible, during that initial phase. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. So anything that's above those vehicle classes would continue to be eligible for HVIP without the vehicle testing.
Okay, that's super helpful. I've got a few more questions kind of related to this. I thought you had mentioned that there might be, in addition to kind of volunteering a vehicle to help inform CARB's approach to testing, did you mention that there's some sort of like technical committee or something like that CARB would be putting together that would provide an additional opportunity for OEMs to help inform the technical specifics of the testing framework? Or maybe I just totally made that up, but
no. So we did have a slide on OEMs volunteering vehicles. Right now, that all of those inquiries would be handled through our standard HVIP inbox. So anything that you have and you can provide, shoot it through that standard HVIP inbox, and we can coordinate through there.
And
okay.
Andy, just to expand on your question, we are not contemplating to make this an extensive external process. We are presenting today what methodology that's already a public, well-known testing method is out there, and something that we would like to start off and start testing. So we definitely welcome, written comments on every and all aspects that we discussed today, because our next step here is to include this proposal in the funding plan, and get some resolution on can we proceed with this proposal before the end of this year. So definitely welcome, all comments, and definitely encourage these in written format to just help us kind of structure our thoughts. Any future workshops that we have on this topic will be more of we took all of the feedback that we received, we discussed, and this is how we are going to move forward. So this is the best time for you guys and all other OEMs to really come in and let us know what about of what we're proposing makes sense, doesn't make sense, or things that we should think about more in depth. We definitely want to hear your comments, but we are not contemplating at this time to make this a huge deliberative process to make sure that everyone's, on the same page.
Got it. Okay. Okay. And then my last question, and thanks for indulging me. Is there sort of specific information that at this time CARB would anticipate making public from the testing results? Or is it merely kind of a yes, no on whether or not you've sufficiently passed the tests that are in the procedure to be deemed eligible?
I'm happy to take this one as well. This would be something that we would work directly with the OEMs, as we do currently with all vehicle eligibility reviews, where it's a little bit of a back and forth on you're missing this, or here's what we're seeing. This would not be made public at this time. With that said, again, if you guys think that, sharing this information with the public, getting feedback is something that would be of value, please let us know. We're happy to contemplate all ideas.
Great.
Yeah, and to add
Thanks so
to
much.
that, any test results that we collect would be internal to CARB, as it pertains to HVIP eligibility. So these reports would not be shared outside of our organization.
Got it. Great. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. We're gonna switch slides here to the contact us slides. We will keep on taking the next few questions. I'll hand it over to April to read through the contact us slide.
Thanks, Jessica. I just wanted to give everyone a heads up that if you have a thought after, or if we don't get to you today, the contact information for the lead staff, Ender and Luis, with the lead managers, Young and Ursula, are included on the screen, in addition to the general HVIP inbox. So we'll leave this up for the duration of the work group. You can note it down, take a screenshot, whatever you'd like, but that's the best way to submit your comments to us. Okay, back to you, Jessica.
Thank you, April. Continuing on with the raised hands, we have Lisa McGee. I've now allowed you to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Lisa McGee, Tom's Truck Center. So on the performance information you shared, that was helpful to understand more about it. And I'm just also curious if that's the only purpose for the testing, and then why, or what else maybe has occurred And so for that purposes, I'm just wondering if we need to really open up some type of scoping process with more discussion that would be robust. And I'm hesitant to state that we're ready for something like this yet as a procedure or process for performance testing and our mechanism. And I don't know if it's just enough yet, given the current little information we have. So I'm going to agree with Christian Cobra's comments that we need to discuss this more, whether it's through a workshop or other process. And then another question, I'm just kind of curious as it relates to the performance. Is this coming from the telematics or not? Is there something about the zero emission powertrain certification executive order, which is an application process that was meant to provide more performance measures as well as confidence to stakeholders? And I'm not so sure that it's done that. So is that the right process for revisiting something of this nature and revise the zero emission powertrain certification given lessons being learned? You've got the GHG executive order, so I'm just trying to tie those elements together. And then in the HVIP manual, there's the warranty there, and I can't find it under 2036 California Code Regulation. And so I'm kind of curious, is the intent to have included it, or was it going to be down the road, or is there something I'm missing? But under 2036, ICE engines have a long useful life and warranty support, including for repairs of high equipment costs and defects. And overall, I think the industry and the stakeholders certainly require this type of insurance for this technology, regardless of what type of zero emission or ICE it is. And if it's also going to be included as performance, I think that's kind of one of my points here is, are we looking at warranty support that has been somewhat mediocre overall compared to what ICE has achieved, given that the IM seems to be the only place for the ZEV warranty? And are we supporting parts and services in a way that these customers need to keep those vehicles on the road to achieve the reduced emissions? And then the last part is that we do have lessons being learned, and that 20% of the zero emission delivered redeemed vehicles no longer have the OEM and their stranded assets. And so is that something else that we need to be looking for? Because those equipment, if given access to diagnostic tools, that equipment still has a long useful life. But of course, without those tools, the customers and the taxpayers are all disadvantaged. And of course, even the citizens not getting the emissions expectation from reported sold HVIP redeemed vouchers. So I just want to make sure that we're covering all bases before we try to do something so easy peasy, then maybe it deserves better attention. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for those comments. We can take those back and talk internally. The vehicle testing, just to your point, is a response to stakeholder feedback regarding performance and end user experience. We just want to make sure that we create a positive experience for ZEV adoption, and the testing is just intended to create that level playing field across vehicle manufacturers.
Thank you, Lisa. Up next, we have Michael Coates. I'm now allowed you to unmute yourself.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. This is Michael Coates with Watt EV. I want to kind of echo some of the questions that Christian, Andy, and Lisa just posed, but maybe add a couple more. Is there a written proposal? And I apologize if I missed it, for this test procedure. Is it all documented in the proposal?
Louise, I don't know if you'd like to take this. What we presented today, you're able to go online and take a look at what's there. We definitely wanted to leave this a little bit more open-ended because we are encouraging all OEMs and impacted parties to look at it and also, kind of weigh in on which parts of this testing methodology are areas we should be paying closer attention to or less. So we left it a little bit more broad on purpose, but you're able to, grab the testing methodology outlined in the slide and then throw it into Google. It should be publicly available.
But thank you, Ursula. So what you presented in the slide is the only documentation on what you're proposing?
At this time, that is correct.
Okay, that's quite vague. I guess this is my initial comment. Also, you're talking about feedback from shareholders, and certainly Watt EV is one with a fleet of almost 80 vehicles. But are you talking about just across the board testing of all manufacturers, or are you just my presumption is the complaints, like I say, you're starting with class 4 to 6, which tend to be a lot of smaller manufacturers. Is that the intent, that you're trying to validate some of the smaller manufacturers as opposed to the major OEMs?
There's a lot of different reasons we're starting with phasing in the class 4 and 6, and some of it is to do with some feedback from fleets. Other is the equipment that we have available in our facility. It's just easier to facilitate those smaller class, and that procedure, the J1634, is written for light duty, so though it aligns better with those class 4 through 6 vehicles. But the idea is to expand this to all vehicle classes in the future.
And if you can, Luis, can you clarify kind of what the exact goals are here? What are you trying to validate or not validate of what a vehicle can do?
Yeah, sure. So the J1634 standard has a test cycle in there, the short multi-cycle range and energy consumption test plus the SMCT plus. And this procedure cycles through different driving conditions, simulating urban, highway, aggressive, and then a steady state battery depletion. So what this test procedure does is to make sure that these trucks can safely perform to these drive cycles, safely perform the tests outlined.
Okay. So, but it's an actual, you're testing the whole system as opposed to, as was mentioned earlier, you're not looking for, obviously there is no emissions, but you're not looking for kind of the details of how it performs. It's kind of, will the vehicle perform or not? Is that basically what you're looking for?
Yeah, there is no emissions. This standards are written for battery electric vehicles, so there is no emissions testing on this. It collects energy consumption, it collects other data, and yes, it is just, can the vehicle perform the tests safely?
Okay. And just final question again. Thank you for taking the time. Is this a test? Do you know whether this is a test that OEMs are performing right now? Is this a typical test that they're performing for their vehicles?
I don't have the answer to that, but I can look into that.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michael. And then we have a final question from Brad Redticher. I've now allowed you to unmute yourself.
Good afternoon. I'm Brad Bredisher from New Flyer Motor Coach Industries, a transit bus and motor coach manufacturer. New Flyer has been producing transit buses for use in California for several years now, with an extensive service network. My concern, I guess, beyond the general methodology and some of the other statements echoed this afternoon, revolves around logistics of the testing. New Flyer transit buses are Class 8 vehicles, and they're not built as an inventory vehicle like some lighter duty manufacturers. And so producing a test bus to travel down to California and conduct testing represents a number of challenges. And so just wondering if there's any kind of consideration given to exempt or an exemption for low volume manufacturers for high value vehicles.
Thank you, Brad, for the question. So at this time, our focus is primarily on different truck classes, and that will give more thought into buses over the next year. So I don't see this impacting New Flyer, but to add to that is the SMCT procedure. Part of the reason it was selected is that it tests multiple driving cycles on a single charge. So not accounting for any kind of setup time. The dyno portion of this test can be performed within a standard 8-hour shift. So, well, and it's important to note that there's other tests that might be required prior to being able to perform the SMCT plus, such as like coast down testing to capture the aerodynamic resistance of vehicles. But part of the reason this test was selected is because you capture a large amount of data in a short amount of time. But again, we are primarily focusing on trucks right now of different classes and buses, not buses at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Brad. And we have another question from Andy Schwartz. Now I'll allow you to unmute yourself.
Yeah, sorry, on the phase in, Luis, I was wondering if you can provide any, I guess, expectation for the timing for the phase in of the different classes you anticipate testing in the future.
Sure, we don't have all those details outlined right now. We have right now our focus is on class 4 through 6 here at early 2026, but we will communicate that out to stakeholders once we get the timeline for phasing in the other vehicle classes.
And just to provide a little bit more, we do plan to schedule one more workshop in early 2026. This will be before we start requesting OEMs to bring their respective vehicles. So just wanted to throw out there in terms of context and time. Again, this will be part of the funding plan. So if you are following and tracking that, you'll be able to see our latest and newest there. We will try to incorporate as many comments and thoughts as we receive after this workshop. And again, we will meet with all of you here in January or in early 2026 before we start doing these testings.
All right, thank you, Ursula and Luis. I think that summarizes all the questions and raised hands we had so far. I don't think we have anything in the inbox right now, so I'll hand it over to April.
Awesome. Thanks, Jessica. I just want to thank everybody for attending. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up. The recording will be posted in a couple of weeks on the website. And if you have any thoughts come to you, feel free to send us an email and we'll definitely take that into consideration. Have a great day, everyone.